It's the SNL Hall of Fame podcast with your host, Jamie Dew, Chief Librarian Thomas Senna, and featuring Matt Ardill. And now, curator of the hall, Jamie Dew.
Thank you so much, Doug DeNance. It is great to be here back in the SNL Hall of Fame. Please mind your feet, give them a wipe, use the map for what it's supposed to be for before you come into our hallowed halls. The SNL Hall of Fame podcast is a weekly affair where each episode we take a deep dive into the career of a former cast member, host, musical guest, or writer and add them to the ballot for your consideration. Once the nominees have been announced, we turn to you, the listener, to vote for the most deserving and help determine who will be enshrined for perpetuity inside the hall. That's how we play the game. It's really quite simple. You follow along, you vote, you celebrate or complain about who got in or who didn't get in. It's really quite a bit of fun for us. I am walking down the hallway now to talk to our good friend Matt Ardill, and we're going to get some information on who we're covering today and who will be nominating them. Wait and see. Well, you don't have to wait and see because you can read the title. And I guess the title sort of gives it away. That's right, we're talking about Jon Hamm today, and we're joined by Jamie Burwood. But before we do that, let's go to our friend Matt Ardill and get the skinny on Jon Hamm. Hello, Matt.
Hello, JD.
What's shaking, my brother?
Not much. I am really looking forward to today's trivia.
Okay, who you got for us?
Jon the Hammaconda Hamm. He is 6'1", born March 10th, 1971, in St. Louis, Missouri. He is the son of a trucker and a secretary. He had a rough childhood growing up, which actually helped inform his backstory when he auditioned for his breakout role of Don Draper. But his first acting role was as Winnie the Pooh in a first grade production.
Okay.
Yeah, so very early start. But he didn't follow that up until playing Judas on Godspell at the age of 16. At John Burroughs School, where he was the member of the football team, the baseball team, and the swim team, because of course he was. He actually dated actor Sarah Clark in high school. He went on to attend the University of Texas before transferring to the University of Missouri, where he answered a newspaper ad for someone to play in a production of Midsummer Night's Dream. Oh. He's gone on to complete 118 acting credits, 10 producer credits, and he has 1 director credit. He almost didn't get the role of Don Draper, which I can't imagine anybody else in that role right now. But he was told by the showrunner that he was too handsome. Wow. Which is not something I'm sure many people frequently hear in a like. I'm sorry, you're just too goddamn handsome for this role. Yeah, they reevaluated and decided that he was the right fit. He received an award nomination for Emmys for the show, Golden Globes, SAG Awards, Annie Hall Awards, Critics' Choice, MTV Movie and TV Awards, National Board of Review Awards, Satellite Awards, Teen Choice Awards, and Television Critics Association. I'm guessing his Teen Choice was for something not Mad Men related.
There should be an acronym for all those awards, like an EGOT, you know?
Yeah.
He should get some sort of preferential treatment in Hollywood as a result of all those awards.
Yeah, they need to broaden the awards, like the MTV Award, Teen Choice Award circuit.
That's right. That's right.
The Slimies, I guess, maybe. I don't know. You can't do that on television, you know. Now, before hitting it big, he worked as a daycare worker and a high school teacher. While teaching high school, he was actually Ellie Kemper's drama teacher and went on to help her break into the world of acting.
Gee whiz.
Yeah. So he followed the Harrison Ford School of acting. He worked as a set dresser. Unfortunately, it was in a much more risque type of cinema as a set dresser on adult films.
Get out of here.
No, yeah, that is one of the many jobs he did in the Valley, just trying to pay the bills. Yeah, when he moved to LA, he actually only had $150 in his pocket and did not book a single gig for 3 years.
He stretched that $150 then, didn't he?
Yeah, well, he worked as a set dresser for adult films, so he was taking any job that came his way. He actually set a career sort of deadline that if he didn't book like something big, a breakout role by 30, he was going to move home. Now, he did make that breakout role, and he's now gone on to star in all sorts of things. While filming A Young Doctor's Diary with Daniel Radcliffe, he became an ardent cricket fan. He has been a comedy nerd from the go.
Yeah.
He's often seen on set quoting Anchorman. And Amy Poehler has recounted in her biography how when she was pregnant and he was coming on the show, they were in makeup and she heard that her doctor had passed away. She had a freak out, was completely losing her mind. She was panicking. He took her by the shoulders, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "I know this is very sad, but this is really important show for me. So I'm going to need you to get your shit together." At which point she started laughing so hard she says she peed herself. But this is one of those moments that she says, when somebody is so funny, they make you go from crying to laughing in a heartbeat, and it's something that can only happen like 5 times in your life. So
he's so good. Have you ever listened to him on Comedy Bang Bang?
Yes. Yeah. He's just got that perfect sense of timing and the counterpoint to like going dark and going light and how to break that tension.
Yeah.
So I think he's severely underrated as a comedic talent. Well, I mean, less so now. I mean, he's kind of embraced it. I mean, his skip the dishes ads are actually like super funny, which is like
great.
You think a big star, but like taking a gig doing ads for a food delivery service in Canada, not even Uber Eats, but specifically a Canadian one. So it's like people aren't going to see it in the States. I don't know. But yeah, he's just a super funny dude. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what we have to hear today.
Yeah, me too. We're fortunate to be joined by a friend of the show, Jamie Burwood. And gosh, I don't know how many times she's been on at this point, but she should be wearing a full robe and I don't know, boots or something like that at this point.
I have to get like scepters for.
Oh, that's good. Scepters. Yeah. I love it. Well, Thomas, take it away, buddy.
Matthew R. Dill and Jamie Dew, thank you so much for that introduction. Informative as always. You guys do such a great job with Matt's Minutia Minute. This has been a really great season of the SNL Hall of Fame in general. Matt's Minutia Minute is going great. I feel like we've had a lot of great discussions this season. So I think we're off and running. We're humming in this season. And it's going to continue that way in this episode because we are welcoming a guest who I told her before we hit record. So you're part of the fabric of the show at this point. Like you're like a really special guest, like one of our VIPs at this point. So Jamie Burwood, thank you so much for coming back here in season 5 of the SNL Hall of Fame. TV show graphs herself, Jamie Burwood. How are you?
I am doing great. It is good to be here again. Season 5, that's wild. Yeah, always love talking to you guys. I feel like we have a good one on deck for today. So yeah, no, it's great to see you.
Yeah, we've really done some fun ones in the past. Will Ferrell, Christopher Walken. We've really just been had really fun and very, very, very entertaining nominees. And I would classify our nominee today just that a really interesting nominee. And you're like one of the perfect people to cover this nominee. Before we get to the nominee who's TV related, what have you been up to, Jamie Burwood? Just in general, are you doing? I know you had the TV show Graphs. How's that been going? What have you been up to?
Yeah, no, things have been going good here. I'll be honest, I've been a little slower on the actual graphing side lately. I still have a few things I've been working on, but I have been catching up on a lot of television. I feel like I go through swings of either like TV watching and then actually like working on projects. And I have been, knee deep in lots of TV watching, catching up on some like anthology type stuff, a little True Detective, Fargo, that type of genre at the moment. And just, I mean, it's winter in Boston, so there's really not a lot to do other than watch TV, occasionally sneak away for like some weekend trips here, trying to get to places that are slightly less cold. But yeah, otherwise just living life here in the very cold city of Boston.
Yeah, catching up on TV. I think that's a great way to spend time. And our nominee today made his bones essentially in a prestige television show, I would call it. It's Mad Men, arguably by a lot of TV show experts and viewers, one of the 4 or 5 possibly greatest television shows of all time. So Jon Hamm is our nominee for today, a really interesting one, again, to me. Jamie, were you a Mad Men watcher?
I wasn't watching it live as it was airing. It was probably like right as it was wrapping up that I started watching it from the start. So it's not one where I can say like, oh, I was so ahead of the curve on this one, or I was watching before everyone else. Sadly, I was not. But as soon as I watched it, I absolutely loved it. It is probably a top 10 all-time show for me. It's one that I think just you can watch it and rewatch it and still catch new things. I feel like the caliber of performances, the caliber of storytelling, it is an all-time great show. And I know sometimes like there can be a little bit of backlash from like prestige TV, or like I feel like Mad Men is one of those shows that always is high on some of those lists. But for me, it's deserving. And I think Jon Hamm in particular made that show what it was.
Yeah, amazing show. I know some people, and I include myself in this, Mad Men took me probably 4 different tries to get going. So I would watch the pilot, maybe watch the second episode, then I would almost sort of lose interest. But the 4th time that I tried to get into Mad Men, it worked. And I finished Mad Men in like 2 months. I just could not stop watching. Every time I had some downtime, I would throw on another episode of Mad Men. I just got completely hooked. And you're right, like Jon Hamm's performance as Don Draper was one of the huge reasons. Like, can you describe what Jon had to do on screen as Don Draper? Like, what kind of character was Don Draper? What did Jon Hamm have to be on screen for that?
Absolutely, yeah. I feel like with Don Draper, he definitely fits the mold of those like kind of anti-hero. You feel like there's a lot behind the surface with the character. I mean, at face value, he's this 1960s ad exec, kind of the smooth talker, has the wife and family at home. And then as the show goes on, you kind of see all that's behind the surface here in terms of, I mean, the very obvious things around the affairs, the drinking, just the whole culture. But also in terms of his family history. I won't give any spoilers, but you just kind of learn that there are so many different layers to who he is and why he does the things that he does. And one of those characters that you really have a kind of complex relationship with in terms of how you feel about. You can go from being like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for this person. I have sympathy based on situations in their past, to feeling like, oh my gosh, this person is unjustified in their actions and I absolutely hate this character. And he does it in a way where you really get some of those subtle nuances coming out in his performance. And I just think it's a top tier performance.
Yeah, and he had to be really subtle too, like you said. Like, especially he had to use facial expressions, but really subtle facial expressions. His tone of voice had to be a certain way, especially in the earlier seasons. He had to play it a lot more stoic.
Yeah.
And as the series progressed, he was a little more animated. But especially at the beginning of the series, it was almost like this enigma. I mean, that was probably part of the point. But like, he was this enigma, and Jon Hamm had to play it like that. So there wasn't really a lot of time for slapstick comedy.
Yeah, exactly.
in his performance, right? And so what makes him a really compelling SNL host is that he came from that dramatic background with Mad Men. That really got Jon Hamm on the scene. And I'm wondering, because as an SNL viewer, Jamie, I mean, how fun is it to feel surprised by a host? Because I feel a lot of people were surprised by Jon Hamm. So as an SNL viewer, how fun is that when you see a host and they surprise you? Like, to me, it's one of the things that makes following the show so rewarding.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, I think it's one of the best things, right? Like, there are times when you go into a host and you know what to expect, and that's great and that's solid. But I feel like those like really special moments come when you go in, you're not sure what to expect, or maybe you see a host known for one genre and you're not sure, are they going to be able to deliver on the comedy side? And I feel like with Jon Hamm in particular, like, he was somebody who was known dramatic actor at that point, and maybe a question of how will this go? How will he hack it in a true kind of live sketch comedy atmosphere? And that is one of the most fun things about this show.
I always have to learn my lesson time and time again that a lot of times the really good dramatic actors are some of the best SNL hosts.
For sure. I can totally see an alternate universe where Jon Hamm was a comedic actor. I mean, maybe his looks might be a little bit of a detriment. I feel like figuring out the right way to like cast him in comedic roles. But I mean, I think it happened that Mad Men became a very successful TV show, and that's how people were introduced to him. But in an alternate universe, maybe a comedic role would have been his breakout, and then we would have been surprised to see him do a show like Mad Men 10 years into his career and be like, oh my gosh, this hilarious guy is also an incredible actor. So it's just kind of funny how it works out. Yeah,
I agree with you. It could have been total reverse. We found out over the years that Jon really enjoys comedy. I mean, he had a role in Bridesmaids that was really funny. Like, while he was playing Don Draper, he was Kristen Wiig's jerk boyfriend in Bridesmaids. He's been on comedy podcasts. He's really good at comedy improv. That's like something that Jon's expressed over the years about how he really enjoys comedy. He almost just sort of, the Don Draper thing's almost like the thing that took off. But you're right. He could have very easily taken off as a comedic actor.
For sure. You see a spark in him, I feel like, whenever he does any sort of comedic role. And I think people have maybe started to see that side of him a little bit more so over the last decade or so. He's done various guest spots, 30 Rock, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. He's had these roles where not necessarily the star of a comedy show, but able to shine in that type of role. And you see that other side of him right away of, oh my gosh, this is a guy who no question can do comedy. He's great at it.
Yeah, people like Tina Fey, SNL Hall of Famer Tina Fey, are giving their stamp of approval with Jon Hamm. You mentioned 30 Rock, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. He's getting like the approval of people who really know their stuff with comedy. So SNL was maybe the first time that people got to see Jon Hamm's comedic chops. So that's why Jon Hamm and SNL, that's an interesting part of his story as an actor. So we'll get to it. Gonna kind of like look at some of he hosted 3 times. So we'll kind of look at his hosting gigs. His first one, season 34, episode 6. That was October 25th, 2008. So it was maybe the second season, I feel like, of Mad Men that was kicking up. So musical guest Coldplay And Jamie, this I'll say up top, like when I saw this episode, I really enjoyed it. So I feel like there's a lot of stuff that we can go over and choose from. Like, what stood out to you? You could pick a specific sketch, but like, what stood out to you first and foremost from this episode?
Yeah, so what's interesting to me about this episode is just kind of the context in which it's taking place first. So you have Jon Hamm coming in, not necessarily the giant name Jon Hamm that we know now, right? Like Mad Men, I think, took a little bit of time to kind of have the critical acclaim bill and to have everyone know it the way that they know it now. So he's coming in a little bit more of an unknown than he is today. He's talked a little bit about this episode in terms of just like his own nerves and like excitement to host, but also being nervous, like going out, doing that monologue. I think was telling a story at one point about how he almost missed his cue to actually go out and like almost had to be like pushed out. And I mean, once the episode kicks off, I feel like he's a pro and like the professional Jon Hamm who does everything brilliantly comes out. But yeah, it's a little bit crazy to me in a good way how he pivoted from apparently being so nervous to doing everything he needs to do to just deliver on the sketches in this episode.
Yeah, there was a little bit of nervous energy, which is to be expected when you're hosting SNL. But it's kind of funny to see somebody like Jon Hamm, especially somebody who played Don Draper, to just be a little bit rattled by an experience. So I love seeing like the human side of somebody like Jon Hamm.
Not everyone has discovered our show yet. So tonight, in hopes of boosting our ratings, I'd like to tell you what you'll see if you tune in. Mad Men is a measured period piece set in the early 1960s that explores the social mores of advertising executives who like to dance with the stars. It's a cutthroat elimination celebrity dancing show, and it's on AMC, 10 p.m. on Sundays. The show stars me, everyone from CSI, all of the Phillies and the Rays.
He's almost like this good-looking robot actor in some ways, so it's fun to see the human side of it. And he was in a lot of, I think, pretty classic sketches from that season, all in one episode. This was like from SNL fans really enjoyed this episode. Is there a particular sketch that you think we should start by talking about?
Yeah, so I feel like I have to start with Trick or Treat, and maybe it's a cop-out going a little bit chronologically, but I think it's interesting because we were talking about how he comes out. It was maybe a little bit nervous, his first time hosting gig. You can maybe start to see a little bit of that. But I feel like with this sketch, and so this is the Jeff Montgomery, it's a classic Halloween sketch. Folks have probably seen it, but you have Will Forte in the kind of creepy, is he a pedophile, is he not, kind of interplay with Jon Hamm. Jon Hamm just crushes this. And I mean, obviously, he's more of the straight man in this, but such an important part. And you were talking earlier about his like facial reactions during Mad Men and just how he brings that. You see that in this sketch. And I'm super impressed that he didn't just break a million times in this sketch because it is so hilarious. And B, not only does he not break, I feel like he brings that kind of professionalism into this in a way that just makes the whole thing work. So, yeah. I'm curious what you think about this one. I feel like this is a top tier sketch for a lot of people.
Oh no, this is a classic one, and it's a very much like it's a Will Forte showcase, and it really plays in Will Forte's really twisted, dark, weird sense of humor sometimes. But you're absolutely right about Jon Hamm and his acting ability, and I think a sketch like this is where being a very good actor can really help elevate a sketch. Because you're right, he had to play the facial expressions just right. He had to go from being annoyed by Jeff Montgomery to kind of feeling bad that he was annoyed to then start to catch on about what the game was.
Let's just be clear on something here. Is sex offender your Halloween costume, or are you fulfilling a legal obligation to declare yourself a sex offender?
Bob, lighten up! It's Halloween! Besides, this is a tradition. You know, I do this every time I move to a new town.
Are you, Jeff Montgomery, a sex offender?
Am I, Jeff Montgomery, a registered sex offender on Halloween? Yes.
What about not on Halloween?
Yes, even when it's not Halloween, I'm still Jeff Montgomery.
A sex offender.
Look, you're missing the point.
He had to play that just right, so he's kind of the voice of us. You're just kind of sitting there going like, is he going to ask these questions? And Jon Hamm, he's not a dumb neighbor. He's a neighbor that's picking up on this. So this is such good acting. I feel like Jamie, and this is what I was talking about as far as like these dramatic, quote unquote, dramatic actors or people who we know as dramatic actors. This is where the really good actors can elevate sketches, and I shouldn't be surprised, but this is yet another example of that.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like this is a sketch where like the material was great, so it still would have been fun if it was kind of like a little more chaotic or he was breaking or all this stuff. Like there's a place for that, but I love that this sketch just comes across as super professional, well delivered, well executed comedy, and I think that played a big role in how folks received it and just the place that I think it has in SNL history, and thinking about like the Halloween compilations and everything, this is always right up there. And I think one of the best, maybe even the best Halloween sketch, definitely at the top for me.
Yeah, for me too. It's up there. And I feel like this episode for Jon had like an interesting trajectory. It almost felt like they sort of ramped him up as far as what he led or how much of the sketch was about Jon Hamm leading. So it seems like at the beginning of the night that this, because this was the lead-off sketch. This sketch happened right after the monologue, and it was, like I said, like a Will Forte showcase, and Jon played a specific role in this. And then they had like him playing Don Draper in the next sketch. The two a-holes, which was really funny. That's of course a Jason and a Kristen vehicle. He had a very brief appearance as John F. Kennedy in another sketch, but you can I think watching this episode, they were kind of ramping Jon up a little bit. He played Don Draper a second time, but this one was a little twist on it. So Don Draper's Guide to Picking Up Women, Jamie, is a pre-tape. It's one that did stand out to me. I know it was very beloved amongst SNL fans. He's playing Don Draper again, but this time it was more fun and comedic. It was a twist on Don Draper.
When asked about your past, give vague, open-ended answers.
So Don, tell me about your family. Any brothers and sisters?
There was a man with bright, shiny shoes. I saw him dancing until the accident.
How mysterious.
Yeah, I loved this one. I think this is a fun just ode to Mad Men fans, or just something that they will extra appreciate. And I mean, hopefully has a little bit broader appeal as well. I think some of the jokes work regardless, but I think especially for folks who know the character of Don Draper, there's a little bit more to the laughs on this one. So I love how he's basically kind of going through all of the different steps to, as it says, his guide to picking up women. All of the things that are just kind of a little bit ridiculous about his character or memorable. So things like, when in doubt, remain absolutely silent, which again, on Mad Men, you see that he is just this kind of stoic person, especially in the early seasons, and just the women and the affairs come from every angle. And just like the reaction that like every woman has around him. Another one of the steps being like, have a great name.
Yeah, right.
You have the context of like the ridiculous name coming out. But yeah, this was just a fun way to kind of give a little bit of love to the Mad Men fans, while also, I think, putting in something that anyone can appreciate.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And I was in the camp of not being a Mad Men fan when I first saw this, but I knew, I mean, once you watch Mad Men, there are Mad Men specific things that are funny. But when I first saw this, I wasn't real familiar with Mad Men. So to me, this sketch really just like, it did convey just a good looking guy who doesn't have to say anything.
Yep.
To pick up women, essentially. And
Exactly.
So there's that joke as well. So you're right. Like, it's for Mad Men fans, but it was for people like me at the time who was not a Mad Men fan. So that's good writing and good acting by Jon. And we'll see, like, that's just a common thread throughout all his sketches. Like, he's just such a good actor. He's just such a presence on screen. He has like total command of the material.
Agreed. Yeah, no, this is a fun one.
Oh, the next one. So we kind of are going chronologically a little because this is such a fun episode.
It is, yeah.
And this next one possibly is the highlight for me of the night, I think, with Vincent Price's Halloween special. So Jon plays James Mason, who is an old British actor. He was in the Stanley Kubrick movie Lolita. And I had to look up, Jamie, James Mason interview because I wanted to compare. And Jon was pretty spot on.
No spaceman costume, James?
No, didn't even open the box. Too old-fashioned.
The suit was too old-fashioned?
No, I had 2 old fashions and I couldn't open the box. I've been drunk since 11 a.m., Price.
Please, James, family show.
Understood. Say, where are the whores?
Cheesy greasy, James.
He had the cadence down. He had a good British accent. Like, this is like probably a deep cut impression, but Jon Hamm's James Mason impression was really good, playing opposite, of course, Vincent Price, Bill Hader's character, and then Kristen Wiig was playing Gloria Swanson from Sunset Boulevard. This is set in the late 50s. So what did you think of Jon actually doing an impression, like playing a character and not himself or Don Draper?
Yeah, I love that, like, the episode starts to, like, pivot in this direction, right? Of just, like, allowing him to do even more. I feel like the second half of the episode, it's like, all bets are off. We'll let this guy just be totally wacky and going beyond the Don Draper sketches that we kind of had to start off. So, yeah, I think this one is really just, like, a fun ensemble sketch for me, right? You have Fred as Liberace, you have kind of Bill kind of coming in, being like raised, I don't know if it was a platform or what, but like starting off the sketch with like a little bit of a gag, just kind of being frustrated that device is not working as expected. So you have a little bit of everything. And then you have the impressions. I was not familiar with James Mason, so I had heard from folks that like he did a great job with this impression, but it wasn't one that like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's that guy or whatever. But for me, even without that, just the line delivery and that like drunken cloud over his performance in the best possible way, just made it super fun. And he has a lot of great lines. The "Hey, where are the whores?" just kind of like drunk coming in.
He absolutely was having fun, and it's fun to see somebody like Jon Hamm. He was playing in the SNL of the time, because this was already this Vincent Price Halloween special. It was either a recurring sketch at this point, or it ended up being a recurring sketch. But this was part of like something that a lot of people liked about this era of SNL. So it was fun to see Jon play with like a recurring sketch. But it's always really neat to me too to see a host really pull off an impression, because we expect our cast members to do that because they're on the show. This is what they do. But to have a host come in and have an impression and really pull it off, and that's what you see from a lot of the greats. Like Alec Baldwin has a handful of impressions that he was really good at. Not Trump, but stuff like Tony Bennett, stuff like that. Like Alec Baldwin had his forte of impressions. It looks like Jon Hamm. I wonder if Jon Hamm randomly told them like, I can do a James Mason.
So what I read about this, and someone might need to fact check me on it, but that he was supposed to be Dean Martin, I think, but then it got changed at the last minute. I don't know the why. I think it was like Lauren saying to change it, and he suggested that he can do James. What's his name? James Mason. So I feel like that it sounds like was an element of him suggesting it. And he does it. I mean, it's great.
Yeah, I think this might have been his best performance of the night for me, just because of like the degree of difficulty for a host to do something like this. The next sketch, I think, is probably the most memorable in terms of just the SNL community at large from this episode. And we had a lot of this around that time. We saw like a play on the host name. So we saw like Peter Sarsgaard's is a famous one. So playing off the host name and creating a product. And it's such a dumb idea, but it does work for me. And especially the delivery. So we have Jamie, Jon Hamm's Jon Hamm. What a product.
Tonight I'm here to talk to you about a product that doesn't need any glitz or gloss. It's a product that speaks for itself, and I'm proud to endorse it. Jon Hamm's Jon Hamm. And you can eat in the bathroom. Let's face it, we live in a fast-paced world. But if you're as busy as I am, every day you have to make a decision. Am I going to eat lunch, or am I going to go to the bathroom? Well, now you never have to make that choice again.
This is probably, across the 3 episodes that we're going to talk about, this is probably my favorite in terms of, like, just makes me laugh the most when I watch it, right? Like, and I don't know what that says about my brand of humor, but something about just the toilet paper rolls of ham and, like, his commitment as he's eating this probably disgusting prop ham.
Right.
But yeah, I just thought this was silly, well executed, fun. It's not super long. It's not like he has this crazy amount of stuff that he's saying or doing, but the line delivery of even just like when he's like, now that's good ham. Just the way he says some of these things, I feel like brings the laughs. And like when we talk about like Jon Hamm and Hall of Fame and just his legacy as a host, I feel like his ability to take great material and elevate it is what I look for in those elite caliber hosts. And this is one that I think actually showcases that really well.
You're so right. He speaks with such gravitas. And that's what this sketch needs. And I love that. I'm a sucker for that when it's really dumb material, but it's presented in such a grand way with such gravitas. Like, it's just like that funny, dry delivery of something so stupid. I love too that they even called out the name thing. Mm-hmm. He said, I bet you're thinking that I'm only endorsing this because my name's Jon Hamm and this is Jon Hamm. Then he had to explain how his name's spelled and it's not spelled that way and all of that. So I love like taking that idea for the sketch and then really like putting it under a microscope and saying, no, I know that I'm up here because it's Jon Hamm and my name's Jon Hamm, but here's the deal. I believe in this product. So he had to really deliver that like really straight. Like, this is so fantastic. And this is another example. Like, so this is toward the end of the night and we're seeing like him get more responsibility in sketches as the night goes on. I think there really is like this upward trend of how much responsibility they're going to give Jon Hamm this episode.
Yep. No, I love that kind of flow with this episode. Like, by the end of this episode, you really see like this guy can do comedy and like you're not even that surprised by it anymore because he's just such a natural and he's just killing it left and right. So yeah, I really like the progression of this episode.
Yeah, and speaking of gravitas, the last sketch, or it's actually like a 3-part runner, but they're back to back to back. Pat Finger.
Hi, I'm Pat Finger, and I'm running for city council right here in beautiful Butts, New York. You know, I grew up here in Butts, so I'm very familiar with the sights, the sounds, and the smells of Butts Valley. In other words, I'm deeply concerned with what's going on inside Butts. I promise to improve our bridges and roads with a special focus on repairing potholes. I vow I will do everything in my power to plug up each and every Butts hole. If there's one thing I know, it's this. To get these things done, you're going to need a finger in Butts.
Cast your vote and put a finger in Butts. Paid for by the committee to elect Pat Finger for city council.
Would you vote for Pat Finger, Jamie? Is he at your vote?
Those ads were so convincing that I don't know how. The name change might confuse me a little bit, right? Like might get to me, but no, we were talking a little bit about just like silly, dumb humor, and so I feel like doubling down on that with this one to end the night. But it's fun, right? I mean, it's basically a bunch of like finger and butt jokes for however long this goes on. But I love that, again, he keeps a straight face pretty well. Like, he's literally just giving the most childish lines and innuendos throughout. And the fact that it's Jon Hamm makes it that much funnier, that this kind of larger-than-life guy type of personality is doing this kind of sketch really makes it work.
Yeah, I love childish things that are said with such commitment and gravitas. And Jon Hamm, more than most, pulls that off so well. He's running for the mayor for mayor in a town called Butts. His name's Pat Finger. Of course, you can see where some of the jokes might go. He changed his name because I love the progression, the escalation of these sketches. So it was 3 consecutive commercials for this for Pat Finger, who he's running for mayor. And I love that he realizes why people weren't taking him or the ads seriously. So he kind of like became self-aware. And of course, he changed his name to his mother's maiden name, which was a Cajun name, Deldo. So, so that's just sort of like the cherry on top of all the childish wordplay that Jon just sells so well. Like, I'm a sucker for this, probably because of his delivery. Like, Jon's just such a good actor. He made this type of material work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like it was a perfect matchup of the right person to be doing this type of sketch. So, yeah, this was a fun way to end it.
So this type of if you're watching this type of episode as it's going on, like your reaction after it ends as an SNL fan, are you just sitting there going like, dang, like that was impressive? Like, what's your reaction after this type of episode, especially from a first time host?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's, again, if you had any doubts that this guy, if you had seen Mad Men a few times or kind of starting to hear about this Jon Hamm guy doing some great acting over on AMC, I feel like any of those doubts at this point are gone. And you're like, okay, this guy is the real deal. He is, I mean, a legitimate great actor, but also just fun and willing to do a bunch of silly stuff. I think we see some of the silly stuff even elevate in the next few episodes, which we'll talk about. But I feel like by the time this is over, you're like, okay, this guy just talked about finger and butts for 3 minutes. Like, he's in. Like, we like this guy. We can have fun with him. He can come back. He's in.
And he made an impression on the cast in this episode. Amy Poehler, I don't know if you've read her book called Yes, Please.
I haven't read it yet, but it's on my stack that I need to read.
Okay, I'm going to spoil just a little bit.
Yes, that's all right. I can handle it.
So she had a funny story in her book about Jon Hamm's episode and about him in particular. So in her book, Yes, Please, she said that during Jon Hamm's first hosting stint here, she was pregnant and she was very close to her due date. And she called her doctor's office to check in with them, and the receptionist was crying and told Amy that the doctor had passed away the night before. So this was on the set of a pre-tape that they were filming. I think it was the How to Pick Up Women pre-tape, because I know Amy was in that one. And Amy started hysterically crying in front of everybody. So Jon went over to Amy, put his hand on her shoulder, and said, you can picture Jon Hamm's voice, he says, "This is a really important show for me. I'm going to need you to get your shit together." He told Amy that. Amy said she laughed so hard that she probably peed herself. And I know that that's something that Jon did to make her feel better and to kind of lighten the tension a little bit. And it was absolutely perfect. So if I didn't already think that he was funny just in real life and good on his feet, that Amy Poehler story about Jon saying that to her at that exact moment, so like left no doubt in my mind. I don't know if you've ever heard Amy tell that, but I love that story.
That's amazing. And again, you hear that story in his voice, which just makes it even better.
Yeah. So he left an impression on Amy Poehler, left an impression on the show itself, because this was season 34 that he had his first hosting gig. Season 35, it doesn't take him long to come back. It's just a little over a year later. Season 35, episode 13. This was January of 2010. Musical guest Michael Bublé, and that's important that Michael Bublé was a musical guest tonight. So we have Jon Hamm returning. Yeah, second season in a row. They must have really liked him. So yeah, his monologue, Jamie, he joked about playing variations of Don Draper in different acting gigs prior to Mad Men. So he's talking about Don Draper again in a monologue, not taking himself too seriously again.
It's always been a dream of mine to host SNL, and that dream came true last year when I did it. So honestly, this time it's really just for the paycheck.
I love that. And I think with each progressive episode, you just get the sense that he's feeling more and more at home. And I feel like it seems like he had great relationships with the cast. I don't know exactly the order of that, if he had some connections with this era of cast first, or if they developed as he was on the show. But it definitely, it feels like he was kind of intertwined with this era, the like Hader, Wig, like that whole group of people. He just fits in so flawlessly with this cast. And I think this episode, kind of his second episode hosting, is where you really kind of start to see that it wasn't just kind of a one-off. He did a great job in his first time, but he really kind of starts to feel like part of the fabric of this era in a way that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I bet when the cast was told that Jon Hamm was going to come back, they were probably like, that's a great idea. We loved working with him last season. So I bet a lot of them were really happy to have him back. I have an important question for you, Jamie. Are you a fan of the movie The Lost Boys?
Not specifically.
Oh, man. Oh, no.
Can I give a confession? I don't know if I've seen it. You don't know if
Okay, this is a safe space. It's okay. The movie came out in 1987.
Oh, that's the year I was born. Oh my gosh. I need to get on that.
Yeah, it's a good one. The Coreys,
Yes.
Corey Haim, Corey
Yes.
Feldman. They're both in that. Jason Patric's in that. Also, another person who's in that is a gentleman. He's a saxophone player named Tim Capello is in that. He plays a shirtless sax player in The Lost Boys. So he was the inspiration. I'm 98% sure that he was the inspiration for Sergio. So talk to me about this goofy digital short Sergio, Jamie.
So much fun. So basically have the guy who's getting cursed. Sergio just keeps appearing in being played by Jon Hamm in the most ridiculous ways. Just instantly silly, right? Like we were talking about the buildup from the last episode of like putting Jon Hamm in these increasingly like stretch roles for him. This is just all in on let's have him play this character who is just hilarious. He's shirtless, right? Shirtless, shiny, kind of the hair, everything going. The absolute best part of this sketch, though, like the punchline at the end. I don't know if punchline's the right word, but kind of having him emerge covered in goo as the baby when you find out the like whatever the good luck thing has been broken, and so he'll be back. But just one of my favorite like ends of a sketch in terms of just nailing that ending and making it super memorable. It's so fun.
Earlier today, I accidentally knocked your good luck trinket onto the floor. I didn't know that it fell, and I stepped on it really, really hard, and I broke it. Sorry, don't be mad. No! Go!
Stay calm now, just push. Go! Here it comes.
Yeah, John is really great at selling this goofy idea, and I could just see Andy and them telling him like, we're gonna make you, if you're up for it, we're gonna make you just be more goofy and silly and look ridiculous in your second time here, because like we're not playing, like we're taking some of the training wheels off and we're gonna have you shirtless, gyrating with the saxophone covered in oil and goo. Are you up for it? And Jon Hamm says, yes, I am up for it. That's what I love about a good SNL host. We like to say this person was game and that person was game. No, doing something like this is game.
Yep. Next level game. Absolutely. It's so fun. Like you get that goofball side of him.
Yeah. And I'm going to need you, Jamie, after we record to go on YouTube and look up, I think if you just search the Lost Boys saxophone player, you'll see the source material for this.
I am so curious now. I did not know this. And I do need to watch that movie for sure.
Yeah, when we stop recording, I'm going to stay on with you and I'm going to have you go on YouTube to watch this. Okay.
I want to see.
Yes, I can't wait. So that was Sergio. A lot of this was a great episode. Like what else stood out to you here, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, I'll touch on this one just briefly, but the new senator one, which is
Well, it
so
fits.
funny.
It's like a
It's interesting to me in terms of like just letting him be goofy. So this is one. It feels like a very like dated of the moment reference. It's talking about Senator Scott Brown from Massachusetts. So as a Bostonian, that was my initial like connection as well. Who was like, I guess, known for being this like hunky kind of senator. I don't remember that being part of his aura, but I guess it was, as kind of the basis for this sketch. And he's played by Jon Hamm, and you have each one of the folks in the meeting, I don't know, various political types, I forget who exactly was who, but they're all kind of envisioning him. And then you have kind of the Jon Hamm, I don't know, not cutaway, but like the little person hovering on the screen. I don't know what the technical term is for that, but in all of these different costumes, outfits, just dancing, gyrating. At one point, he's in like a flapper,
that was my
kind
favorite
of 20s
one.
dress, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a sketch that like, yes, feels very much a product of that moment. They mentioned the Scott Brown thing literally during Weekend Update and in the cold open of this episode. So I was like, this must have been a big story this week for some reason. But taking that aside, I feel like just what he did in that sketch was really fun to me. And again, makes it very clear from the first 2 or 3 sketches that like this guy is here to just have a wild good time with us.
Yeah, it's his second sketch in a row where he's dancing around shirtless.
Yep.
So he was just completely up for that on this particular evening. Yeah, and the way he played it too as Scott Brown, he would walk in like, "Oops, I accidentally walked into the wrong room," and then he would like flirt with one of them.
Yep.
Just to kind of like get in. He would like flirt with each of them individually. He knew what he was doing. Yeah, so I think this does, like with this one and Sergio, there is that common thread.
Yep.
Of that. Yeah. I guess we are going to maybe go a little bit chronologically. The next one is one of my favorite recurring sketches from around this time. Game Time with Randy and Greg. Like, do you remember these when they were so goofy? Wonderful Bill Hader showcase, but John plays an alien. But Bill Hader plays an alien. He plays Greg, who's quote unquote not an alien, but he is. But John matches Bill so well playing an alien in this sketch. Yep. Jamie.
I mean, Bill Hader, like one of the all-time greats, just so incredible to be able to play with and play off of Bill Hader in the way that Jon Hamm does in this sketch was really impressive to me. Like, there's a moment or a few moments actually where they're almost doing like synchronous movements together in like full alien style, and I thought that was really well done. As they kind of keep multiplying, and we have 4 Gregs and then 8 Gregs, it was a zany, fun sketch. I feel like it's cool seeing Jon Hamm too with some of these different pairings, and again we talked about how he fits into this cast so well, but any time throughout these episodes where he's with Bill, I just love that, because I feel like they have this energy or just something with their like different comedic styles that just works well for me. So this was a fun one.
Yeah, a comedic genius like Bill Hader sees John and trusts him as a comedic actor and a scene partner. So that was very obvious here. It was obvious in the Vincent Price one. It's just obvious how much trust that the cast has in Jon Hamm to pull off this material. I love when he and Bill Hader's the aliens. They're looking at that globe, and the caller's like, "Oh, that's not good. They're talking about doing stuff to the Earth. That's classic Alien."
Yep.
It's like I love these sketches, and Jon Hamm just felt right at home. Because I think they did these like 3 or 4 times, and all of them were like 5-star.
Solid.
sketches.
Yeah. Yep. No, this was great.
Yeah, I have a feeling that you love the next one too. And the next one might be my favorite Jon Hamm sketch.
Okay.
On SNL. But I'm going to let you start talking about it.
Yeah. So I assume we're talking Hamm and Bubbly.
Absolutely.
Yes. So this was you'll have to help me with the details here. Restaurant is supposed to be a restaurant, was the vibe, right? Was
Yeah, Jon Hamm had an
yeah.
idea that he pitched to Michael Bublé at a party when he was a little drunk. Michael Bublé sings, he gives the backstory in song form. So this is supposed to be a restaurant, yeah.
Yes. And the entire sketch is essentially sung to the tune of I Just Haven't Met You Yet, maybe little breaks throughout, but you kind of get that whole like Michael Bublé and first of all, like love when you have the musical guests kind of coming in to have fun and to be such a crucial part. I feel like sometimes you have the musical guests coming in and they maybe say a line or they get to say that they were in a sketch, but I love that he is such an integral part of this. And by the end, you have Michael Bublé basically admitting that he's been taken captive and asking for the police to get involved. It's a lot of fun seeing kind of this side of Jon Hamm in this one.
Yeah, Jon is perfect as like this intimidating guy or this like low-key sinister guy. Like he's trying to like have a smile on his face and say, hey, come to our restaurant that serves champagne and ham and pork products and bubbly. And I just love like you see the intimidation, you see that side of him in little spurts.
Good evening. I'm Jon Hamm. If you're looking for a romantic night out at a restaurant that specializes in pork dishes and fine champagne, then look no further than Ham and Bubbly.
It's actually pronounced Bublé.
Well, Bublé doesn't work, so now it's pronounced Bubbly.
And it's just like, this is played so perfectly. To me, this is one of my favorite sketches of like that era, 2010s, around that time. I just absolutely love this. You're right. Michael Bublé shows such fun comedic chops as well. This is a classic in my opinion.
Yeah. And I love like just the interplay across these different sketches. You have him from an alien before to now this like kind of intimidating guy holding someone else captive in this one. Like all of these different sides of Jon Hamm's character breadth that he can do. It's really fun.
Yeah, this was great. Is there anything else from this episode that stood out to you?
The only other one that I would give a quick shout out to is the two-part closet organizer series. So this is super fun. You have basically a ton of things getting thrown at is it Zipco? Is that the name? Zipco closet organizer?
I think it's something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's basically a guy in like a blue suit, Will Forte's character, who's like just dealing with all of this stuff kind of being basically the closet organizer.
Marbles, pies, yeah.
So it works on its own, but I think for me, like seeing the second part was what made me really appreciate it. So the second part being basically it seems like this random bar sketch. You don't even realize at first that there's a connection. You have Jon Hamm, Will Forte sitting at a bar together, Jon Hamm recognizing and being like, oh my gosh, you're that closet organizer guy, the guy from that wearing the blue suit, and goes into this whole thing, finds out his name is Tarky Fensington, and like it becomes a whole ordeal. Jon Hamm's like asking him to do a little bit of his role, and then you find out he like kind of wants to go over to his house or like meet up, have him come over to like use his closet organizing services, and the guy's mad that that's what everyone just wants to use him for, and it's just fun, right? I feel like they could have gone in the direction of just like giving us more of those like commercial spots, but instead they kind of like flipped it and gave us like the inside look at the guy who was in this commercial. So I thought it was a cool twist.
Yeah, I love when SNL does this, and especially how they did it here. So I like runners in general, but you're right. This was like this wasn't just a second closet organizer commercial.
Right. Yep.
It was like that. We've already established that there's a commercial. Now we're going to see the guy who was in the closet organizer commercial just at a bar somewhere. That was like perfect. Jon, it's kind of funny because in the first one, Jon just played an actor who gave a testimonial that had nothing to do with the product. So it was kind of like a non sequitur testimonial. So then Jon is in the second one as this person who's like And at first he said, oh, we can come, we can hang out, we can play video games, have fun, and then maybe you can help me organize my closet. And then Will Forte's like, oh, there it is.
There it is.
Yep, there it is. So it's just great acting by Jon. Just the perfect, like when he's revealing that Will Forte's the closet organizer, he does it in just a great timing. There's like a great delivery in that reveal. So that's something again, I'm saying this a lot, but that was a very memorable sketch amongst SNL fans around that time. And Jon Hamm, again, part of it. So again, we're 2 for 2 as far as like, would you consider this like a classic SNL episode?
Absolutely. Honestly, both of these first 2 episodes, like I was trying to think like of the 3, which are my favorite. It's either number 1 or number 2, but I keep going back and forth. Like, I think the first one probably had my favorite like sketch or moment with the like Jon Hamm, but this one, like from a consistency standpoint, I feel like had a lot of just classic, really great sketches. So it's kind of like it's hard to pick between these 2.
Yeah, I think they're pretty equal. I think Jon was given a little more responsibility in the second one.
Yeah.
So if we're talking Jon Hamm, that might edge it out for me. But to me, honestly, these first 2 Jon Hamm episodes are 2 classics from the era.
Agreed.
And not a lot of hosts get 1 classic, much less 2 classics.
So. Agreed.
Yeah, and we really only see like the best of the best hosts on 3 seasons in a row. So like John Goodman was on a bunch of seasons, or I think Alec Baldwin has had stretches where he's hosted through like 3 seasons or more in a row. Jon does it this time. So he's hosted season 34, 35. He's back for season 36. Like, Jamie, is this a clear sign that the show holds Jon Hamm in like rare, like high regard?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like at this point, it's like, okay, people want to see this guy back. Clearly gets along well with the cast. I feel like just in all directions, you see him kind of fitting into this era of the show, like we talked about before. So love the 3 and 3 seasons. I feel like it also allows us as viewers to kind of feel like you're getting to know the host a little bit better, right? Like sometimes there's these big breaks between when a host will come on, which is all right as well, but I do think there is something to be said for like really feeling like, okay, here he is, he's back again. Let's see what he's gonna bring us this time.
Yeah, this is October 30th, 2010. So 2 in the same calendar year, too. He had 2 hosting gigs in 2010. So that's quite the accomplishment. Musical guest Rihanna. This one had some good Jon performances. There were probably a couple of kind of standout things that Jon did. I agree with you, though. Like, I think this one would be probably a clear third if we're kind of ranking the episodes. I think this one would be a clear third. But what do you want to kind of highlight from this third Jon Hamm episode?
Yeah, so I think for me, like, the monologue was interesting actually on this one because he specifically calls out like the progression of his nerves and how much less nervous he is at this point, or I guess he says only slightly less nervous, but at this point it's season 4 of Mad Men, I think he shouts out. So still does a few little like connections in. He's basically like giving slogans or marketing visions for various products with kind of different cast members chiming in. So I thought that was kind of a fun way to like give us a little bit of Don Draper Mad Men stuff without it being like entire sketches worth.
And you know, one of the many benefits of being on Mad Men is getting to know the world of advertising. It's funny, but playing Don Draper has made me think about ad campaigns a lot. Sometimes I will be walking down the street and I'll see a product and a slogan will just pop into my head. Here, I'll show you. Someone name a product. You. It can be anything.
Purses.
Purses. What are purses? They're for ladies to hold things. But they're more than that. Purses are the things you need for the small trips in life. They're... I almost have it. Every day is a secret vacation with your tiny lady suitcase. Purses. Not bad, right?
I enjoyed that.
I think that was probably the best monologue of the three, in my opinion. Yeah.
For me, it was. Yep. And I think, again, it's maybe also my bias of just by this point, you know him, you are like, oh my gosh, Jon Hamm, here he is. And you're just kind of ready for him to kick things off and get into some actual like funny material. So I like that we got that in this monologue.
Yeah, definitely. So he did another Vincent Price, which he played John F. Kennedy. I thought that was pretty cool to see him do a character, do an accent.
Another guest? Who could it be? Well, it's none other than Democratic presidential nominee John F. Kennedy.
It's good to be here, Vincent.
And who's your friend?
Oh, well, you told me to bring Candy, so I'd like to introduce you to Candy DiCenzo of the Reno DiCenzos.
You're so funny, Johnny.
My God, man, you're running for president.
Oh, don't worry, Vincent. She's just my campaign manager.
Oh.
And also a prostitute.
Oh.
How was Jon Hamm's Boston accent, Massachusetts accent?
All right. I'm a harsh critic.
Yeah, that's why I was asking. Yeah, you're like...
Yeah. It wasn't bad. I'll tell you what, if I notice it being bad, that's when it's like, oh my gosh, like when it feels like someone's trying too hard. I feel like it felt pretty natural. It didn't distract, I feel like, from what he was doing either. So yeah, it worked. It worked for me.
Yeah. So another fun installment of Vincent Price's Halloween special. What did you want to highlight from this?
Yeah, so let's see. The Back to the Future DVD spots were kind of fun. So we have just so many different impressions, like, I don't know, 10 or more. I forget how many. There's so many. But again, like Jon Hamm kind of being part of it as well with Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, take one.
Marty, it's getting heavy in here. Yes. 1.21 gigawatts. Yo, Marty, Libyans, we gotta get the hell out of here. No, Marty, we gotta harness the lightning. Woo! Praise Jesus.
The space-time continuum, see?
Did I get it? Oh, Mr. Happy thinks so.
Just
that was surprising to me. Out of all impressions that Jon Hamm could do, like he broke out a Robin Williams. That was that was really surprising. I think it missed a little bit of manic energy. I think he could have maybe, pardon the pun, I think he could have hammed it up a little bit more. But like it wasn't bad to me, and I respected that he tried a Robin Williams.
Yeah, I feel like the impressions from these, like there was the whole gamut. We had like an Eddie Murphy and an Al Pacino in there. Some were great, some were just okay, as it always is, I feel like, with some of these like impression-based sketches. But I love that he just got right in on the action, and it was fun. Again, props to any host that'll just jump right into the impression game with everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. And this third episode for Jon, you could tell he was just like, I want to have fun. I'm just going to have so much fun. I'm less nervous than I was before, and I want to do some really goofy stuff. He did one right after that Back to the Future DVD anniversary thing. He played the husband of a woman who was auditioning for, I think it was Kristen Wiig, who was auditioning for some roles, and he played this husband who was advocating for her.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm her husband. I just have to know how this is going.
Oh, he just told me I didn't get the part. It's done.
Well, you are making a huge mistake, sir.
Sandy, please.
No, I want to do this. This woman isn't just my wife. She is an actress. She is a masteress of her craft. Are you insane in the membrane? Insane in the brain?
You guys gotta go.
First, let me ask you, sir. Have you seen this woman's Stanley Steamer commercial?
Sandy, don't.
Let me remind you.
That was such fun, like dramatic, over-the-top dramatic acting by Jon. I think this was where he was like really well utilized in this episode.
Yep. And it's interesting, like we were talking about episodes 1 and 2, maybe if you had to rank having more of the like classic sketches, but I felt like this episode had solid sketches. It had him doing different things in ways where like he understands the assignment and does it extremely well. And I think having somebody who can do that, not every sketch across somebody's hosting career is going to be a put it on the DVDs, like best of all time kind of sketch. But I feel like with like across all that he's doing, like he does a great job with the material he's given. And there were some fun
moments in this episode too. Yeah, he gets to have fun with the cast. He gets to kiss Jason Sudeikis.
Yes,
in a sketch, the Highway Cops one.
Yep.
Yeah.
I really also liked the I didn't ask for this one, where you have kind of all of these different people who became famous for like bad reactions to things on the internet, or you have like one guy who like reacted to an internet jump scare video and like wet his pants and punched the laptop and was coming onto the show to talk about that. And you have Kristen Wiig, who was like stung by a bee and it got like remixed into some ridiculous thing. And then you have Jon Hamm coming in as a guest on the show, who was like this absentee father who reconnects with his son and then has this viral moment where he just like sobs in this really like ugly cry, but also like makes a really weird noise while he's doing it kind of way. Then it kind of becomes a whole thing where they all start laughing at him on the show itself, and then he does it again. Which, again, just like if you look at the Jon Hamm part of that sketch, I feel like he was just doing crazy things, making weird noises and weird faces, and didn't care, and just having a good old time with it. So I liked his role in that one.
Yeah, me too. I did like that one. Even if it's not A+ material, you know Jon Hamm's going to go for it.
Right, exactly.
And that's what I like. You know you're going to get a solid Jon Hamm performance. So all in all, 3 episodes, 2 classic episodes. I think we're in agreement about that. And 1 good episode.
Yep.
I think that's a really great hit rate.
Yeah.
for 3 episodes.
Absolutely. And I mean, he has that up for anything vibe, honestly, in all 3 episodes to me. You definitely see the progression of how they use him and kind of trying out different things. But honestly, like throughout all 3, I feel like he exudes that energy. He kind of brings both the seriousness in some of the sketches, but also that goofiness and humor to others. And everyone loves seeing that person they know from the prestige drama show come in and do absolutely ridiculous, wacky things. And I feel like people had a real taking to him. Like, I've talked to some people who actually were surprised that he's not a 5-timer, thinking that he's hosted the show more often than he has, just because his impact when he does come on is so memorable, and you do associate him with classic sketches. And I think also the fact that he did a couple Halloween episodes, I feel like there's this association of Jon Hamm and Halloween sketches, and I feel like he had that impact that makes it even feel like he hosted more than the 3 times to me.
Yeah, that's a mark of a potential Hall of Famer, is an outsized impact relative to how often they hosted the show. That's a really great point. So after Mad Men, he hasn't been in anything as the lead that's really like hit. He's made a lot of great appearances in, like you said, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. He was in Top Gun Maverick, which I loved. He was like 7th on the call sheet, probably in Top Gun Maverick. So he's appeared, like he appears in a lot of things, but he hasn't had that hit like Mad Men. So I'm wondering, like, do you think it's possible that we could see Jon host again? Or was he just kind of specific to that era of SNL?
It's so interesting because we do see him pop in still from time to time, right? Like, he is somebody who I feel like is just like has fun with the show and is like, hey, you want me to come do a cameo? Come be in this one sketch? Like, I'll do that. That sounds cool.
He was in that Manning cast.
Yes, I loved him in that, actually. Yeah, I really did.
He played a politician. Who did he play? I remember he played a politician that was like it was like a soap opera political sketch, and he had like a love affair with AOC, who Melissa Villaseñor played, but Jon Hamm just randomly appeared there. So you're right, he has made appearances here and there.
Yeah, I also heard that apparently when Lindsay Lohan was host, he was the backup host on call for if she could not perform her duties.
Okay.
And I think he teammate on the episode? I'm not 100% sure, but he was like on deck in case that did not work out. So I feel like there is this relationship that he seems to have with the show of like part of the gang, had strong relationships, I think, with that like late 2000s cast, but also seems to have maintained connection with the show overall. I would not be surprised if we saw him again. I was surprised that we actually didn't see him. So season 5 of Fargo, which I have not seen yet, I'm still catching up, but I've heard great things about him on that, and I think somewhat of a lead-ish role. So I was wondering if that might tie in. But yeah, if I had to bet money on it, I would think we might see him again. But it's also a little weird that it has been so long. So,
It's been
I don't know.
13 years
now. It could go either way on this one. But I hope if he has like a big like starring like movie role or big TV role or something that he's really trying to promote, that we can't count it out entirely.
Yeah, he's one of the hosts that I want to see return the most, honestly.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah, I want to see.
I think it would draw great ratings. I think people would love it. Like, people, I think, at this point associate him as this host that when he comes on, it's a great SNL episode. So I think it would be a great move if they do find out a way to bring him back at some point.
Yeah, I agree. And just to kind of sum it up, so Jon has only 3 hosting stints, as we've mentioned. He didn't rack up the numbers like some of the other greats, but why do you think voters should look at Jon Hamm as a potential Hall of Fame caliber host?
Yeah, for sure. So I think he to me feels connected to the DNA of the show. And I mentioned that before. I think specifically in the era he was on, yes, but also the fact that he has had cameos and appearances that extend all the way to the present era. I feel like he has that relationship with the show and the impact on the show. I think his chemistry with the cast feels extremely natural. You really see that, I think, in all 3 of the episodes that he has. He's somebody that has multiple classic sketches, but more than that, I think he actually helps create the greatness in those sketches. So he takes great writing, great material, but then brings his own comedic chops to that. And he kind of leaves that impression of somebody where you're like, oh my gosh, I love seeing what he can do from a comedy perspective on a show like SNL. So, like I said, he's the kind of person where I think his reputation as a host is extremely strong. When I talk to people, there is that sense that he did even more than the 3 that he's done, and that when he is on the show, people want to watch. So to me, that is a Hall of Famer.
So there's that. Kudos to Jamie Burwood and Thomas for opening my eyes to the SNL hosting career of Jon Hamm. I really like the idea that he brings the greatness to sketches, even as a host, which is ideally what we want a host to do. Let's listen to one of those sketches now and hear the greatness of Jon Hamm.
Hello, I'm Jon Hamm. You know, ad executives are always trying to find new and exciting ways to present products to the American consumer. Well, tonight I'm here to talk to you about a product that doesn't need any glitz or gloss. It's a product that speaks for itself, and I'm proud to endorse it. Jon Hamm's Jon Hamm. And you can eat in the bathroom. Let's face it, we live in a fast-paced world. But if you're as busy as I am, every day you have to make a decision. Am I going to eat lunch, or am I going to go to the bathroom? Well, now you never have to make that choice again. Each Jon Hamm's Jon Hamm dispenser is located opposite the toilet paper dispenser. You never get confused. And unlike other bathroom ham dispensers, Jon Hamm's Jon Hamm has only the finest boar's head oven roasted ham. That's good ham. Now, I know what you're thinking, that I'm only endorsing Jon Hamm because Jon Hamm is also my name. Well, you're wrong. You're dead wrong. First of all, my last name has 2 M's, and second of all, my first name doesn't have an H. Feel like a dummy yet? Because you should. And if you order in the next 5 minutes, you'll get a free dispenser of Jon Hamm's mustard soap. It's a delicious mustard that has no soap properties at all. And if you're wondering, it tastes great on ham. So what are you waiting for? Don't find yourself on the toilet craving high-quality ham slices. Tell your boss to order one for the office today.
To order Jon Hamm's Jon Hamm, call 1-800-555-0199 or go to our website, johnhams.ham.com.
And remember the Jon Hamm's Jon Hamm motto. If it feels like a slice of ham, don't wipe your ass with it.
That's fantastic. You might remember that sketch when it aired. It was great then, and it's great now listening to it. It's very, very funny. So, is it funny enough to land Jon Hamm into the SNL Hall of Fame? Well, that's not for me to decide. That's for you to decide. When we open voting after the roundtable episode, you will be able to vote your favorites. You'll have 15 votes to cast, and there's quite a few people that are going to be on this ballot. You've got some tough choices to make. Are you a small hall person? Are you a big hall person? It's going to depend on those types of things as to who gets in. The hosting category is relatively slim at this point, but there are some surefire Hall of Famers. Well, of course they're surefire Hall of Famers if they're in the Hall of Fame, but you catch my drift. Anyway, next week we have a fantastic show for you. Our nominee is going to be Emma Stone. So this will be the 3rd host in a row that we are discussing. Where does Emma Stone fit in with that triumvirate? You'll have to listen and decide for yourself. She will be nominated by special guest, SNL stats guru for the Saturday Night Network, Mike Murray. So definitely download that episode, download them all, rate, review, share, subscribe to all your friends, and, get involved. That's all I've got for you this week. So if you'd please do me a favor and on your way out, as you pass the Weekend Update exhibit, turn out the lights, because the SNL Hall of Fame is now closed.
Thanks for listening to the SNL Hall of Fame podcast. Make sure to rate, review, share, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media at SNL HOF. This is Doug DeNance saying, see you next week.
To podcasts and such.